So who is ready to read chapters 31 and 32? We are reading Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, and this is our chapter book story time here at the Caribou Public Library. I'm Miss Erin. Thank you so much for joining us today. So this chapter is called Humbug, and here's the picture. My master was not immediately suited, but in a few days my new groom came. He was a tall, good-looking fellow enough, but if ever there was a humbug in the shape of a groom, Alfred Smirk was the man. He was very civil to me and never used me ill. In fact, he did a great deal of stroking and patting, which, when master was there to see it. He always brushed my mane and tail with water and my hoofs with oil before he brought me to the door to make me look smart. But as to cleaning my feet, or looking into my shoes, or grooming me thoroughly, he thought no more of that than if I had been a cow. He left my bit rusty, my saddle damp, and my crupper stiff. Alfred Smirk considered himself very handsome. He spent a great deal of time about his hair, his whiskers, and necktie before a little looking-glass in the harness room. When his master was speaking to him, it was always, yes, sir," touching his hat at every word. And everyone thought he was a very nice young man, and that Mr. Barry was very fortunate to meet him. I should say he was the laziest, most conceited fellow I ever came near. Of course, it was a great thing not to be ill-used, but then a horse wants more than that. I had a loose box and might have been very comfortable if he had not been too indolent to clean it out. He never took all the straw away, and the smell from what lay underneath was very bad, while the strong vapors that rose up made my eyes smart and inflame, and I did not feel the same appetite for my food. One day his master came in and said, "Alfred, the stable smells rather strong. Should you not give that stall a good scrub and throw down plenty of water?" "Well, sir," he said, touching his cap, "if I do, I'll do so if you please. But it's rather dangerous, sir, throwing down water in a horse's box. They are very apt to take cold, sir. I should not like him to do him injury, but I'll do it if you please, sir." "Well," said his master, "I should not like him to take cold, but I don't think that the smell of the stable is right. Do you think the drains are all right?" "Well, sir, now that you mention it, I think the drain does sometimes send back a smell. There may be something wrong, sir." "I'll send for the bricklayer and have it seen to," said his master. Yes, sir, I will." The bricklayer came up, pulled up a great many bricks, found nothing amiss, so he put down some lime and charged the master 5 shillings. And the smell in my box was as bad as ever. But that was not all. Standing as I did on a quantity of moist straw, my feet grew unhealthy and tender, and the master used to say, "I don't know what is the matter with this horse. He goes very fumble-footed. I'm sometimes afraid that he will stumble." Here he is, the master, talking with the new hired man. "Yes, sir," said Alfred. "I've noticed the same myself when I have exercised him." Now the fact was that he hardly ever did exercise me, and when the master was busy, I often stood for days together without stretching my legs at all, and yet being fed just as high as if I were hard at work. This often distorted my health, and made me sometimes heavy and dull, but for more often restless and feverish. He never gave me a meal of green meal or bran mash, which would have cooled me, for he was altogether as ignorant as he was conceited. And then, instead of exercise or change of food, I had to take horse balls and draughts, which, beside the nuisance of having them poured down my throat, used to make me feel ill and uncomfortable. One day my feet were so tender that trotting over some fresh stones with my master on my back, I made 2 such serious stumbles, that as he came down to Lansdowne into the city, he stopped at the farrier's and asked him to see what was the matter with me. The man took up my feet one by one and examined them. Then, standing up and dusting his hands one against the other, he said, "Your horse has got thrush, and badly too. His feet are very tender. It is fortunate that he's not been down. I wonder your groom has not seen to it before. This is the sort of thing that we find in foul stables where the litter is not properly cleaned out. If you will send him here tomorrow, I will attend to the hoof, and I will direct your man how to apply the liniment which I will give him." The next day I had my feet thoroughly cleansed and stuffed with tow, soaked in some strong lotion, and a very unpleasant business it was. The farrier ordered all the litter to be taken out of my box day by day, and the floor kept very clean. Then I was to have bran mashes, a little green meal, and not so much corn until my feet were well again. With this treatment, I soon regained my spirits, but Mr. Barry was so much disgusted at being twice deceived by his grooms that he determined to give up keeping a horse, and to hire when he wanted one. I was therefore kept until my feet were quite sound, and was then sold again. All right, the next chapter is the beginning of part 3. So the next phase of Black Beauty's life, right? Chapter 32 is called The Horse Fair. No doubt a horse fair is a very amusing place for those who have nothing to lose. At any rate, there is plenty to see. Long strings of young horses out of the country, fresh from the marshes, and droves of shaggy little Welsh ponies, no higher than Merrylegs, and hundreds of cart horses of all sorts, some of them with their long tails braided up and tied with scarlet cord, and a good many like myself, handsome and high-bred, but fallen into the middle class, through some accident or blemish, unsoundness of wind, or some other complaint. There were some splendid animals, quite in their prime and fit for anything. They were throwing out their legs and showing off their paces in high style, as they were trotted out with a leading rein, the grooming running by the side. But round in the background, there were a number of poor things sadly broken down with hard work, with their knees knuckling over, and their hind legs swinging out at every step. And there were some very dejected-looking old horses, with the underlip hanging down and the ears lying back heavily, as if there were no more pleasure in life, and no more hope. There were some so thin you might see all their ribs, and some with old sores on their backs or hips. These were sad sights for a horse to look upon. Who knows, not but that he may come to the same state. There was a great deal of bargaining, of running up and beating down, and if a horse may speak his mind so far as he understands, I should say there were more lies told and more trickery at that horse fair than a clever man could give an account of. I was put with 2 or 3 other strong, useful-looking horses, and a good many people came to look at us. The gentlemen always turned from me when they saw my broken knees, though the man who had me swore it was only a slip in the stall. The first thing was to pull my mouth open, then look at my eyes, then feel all the way down my legs, then give me a hard feel of the skin and flesh, and then try my paces. It was wonderful what a difference there was in the way these things were done. Some did it in a rough, offhand way, as if one was only a piece of wood, while others would take their hands gently over one's body, with a pat now and then, as much to say, "By your leave." Of course, I judged a good deal of the buyers by their manners to myself. Here is a picture of a man who is looking over Black Beauty, checking his knees, getting ready to buy him, maybe. There was one man, I thought, if he would buy me, I should be happy. He was not a gentleman, nor yet one of the loud, flashy sort that call themselves so. He was rather a small man, but well made and quick in all his motions. I knew in a moment by the way he handled me that he was used to horses. He spoke gently, and his gray eye had a kindly, cheery look to it. It may seem strange to say, but it is true all the same, that the clean, fresh smell that there was about him made me take to him. No smell of old beer and tobacco, which I hated, but a fresh smell as if he had come out of a hayloft. He offered 23 pounds for me, but that was refused, and he walked away. I looked after him, but he was gone, and a very hard-looking, loud-voiced man came. I was dreadfully afraid that he would have me, but he walked off. 1 or 2 more came who did not mean business. Then the hard-faced man came back again and offered 23 pounds. A very close bargain was being driven. For my salesman began to think that he should not get all that he had asked, and must come down in price, right? But just then the gray-eyed man came back again. I could not help reaching out my head towards him. He stroked my face kindly. "Well, old chap," he said, "I think we should suit each other. I'll give 24 for him." "Say 25 and you shall have him." 24.10, said my friend, in a very decided tone. "Not another 6 pence. Yes or no?" Done, said the salesman, and you may depend upon it, there's a monstrous deal of quality in that horse. If you want him for cab work, he's a bargain. The money was paid on the spot, and my new master took my halter and led me out of the fair to an inn, where he had a saddle and bridle ready. He gave me a good feed of oats and stood by while I ate it, talking to himself and talking to me. Half an hour after, we were on our way to London through pleasant lanes and country roads until we came to the great London thoroughfare, on which we traveled steadily until the twilight. We reached the great city. The gas lamps were already lighted. There were streets to the right and streets to the left, and streets crossing each other for mile upon mile. I thought we should never come to the end of them. At last, in passing through one, we came to a long cab stand, where my rider called out in a cheery voice, "Good night, Governor." "Halloo!" cried a voice. "Have you got good one?" "Oh, I think so," replied my owner. "I wish you luck with him." "Thank you, Governor," and he rode on. We soon turned up one of the side streets, and about halfway up that we turned into a very narrow street, with rather poor-looking houses on one side, and what seemed to be coach houses and stables on the other. My owner pulled up at one of the houses and whistled. The door flew open, and a young woman, followed by a little girl and boy, ran out. There was a very lively greeting as my rider dismounted. There's another picture. There's the family. "Now then, Harry, my boy, open the gates, and Mother will bring us the lantern." The next minute they were all standing round me in a small stable yard. "Is he gentle, Father?" "Yes, Dolly, as gentle as your own kitten. Come and pat him." At once the little hand was patted all over my shoulder without fear. How good it felt! "Let me get him a bran mash while you rub him down," said the mother. "Do, Polly, it's just what he wants, and I know you've got a beautiful mash ready for me." "Sausage dumpling and apple turnover," shouted the boy, which set them all laughing. I was led into a comfortable, clean-smelling stall with plenty of dry straw, and after a capital supper, I lay down, thinking that I was going to be happy. Well, that's it for now. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and we'll see you next time. Bye.